It's a Maca law firm representing injured people. Japanese beetles love roses too, don't they?
They will chew on the leaves. Yes, they will.
You got to protect against that. So generally, I use 7. Is a product such as that? Is that the best way? I know they say get the traps, the Japanese beetle traps, but to my mind, that just calls them in.
Well, yeah, there's pheromones in most of those traps, and that's what attracts those adult beetles to the trap. So you would want to put them away from plants that you know they will eat, and of course their menu is pretty broad. So feed on a lot of different things. So yeah, it seems to work better if you keep those traps away from. Some people jokingly say put them on your neighbor's property, and so that they don't come on your property.
They'll go visit your neighbor.
Yeah,
nice.
But that's not very nice.
No, not very nice at all. Here's another picture for you from a different angle of my rose bush at my house. But folks' roses, they're starting to bloom here.
Yep, starting to bloom.
We just
had some started, this week as well.
Yeah. Love when that happens. Really do. Because it sort of validates the fact that when you take care of them before the growing season starts, and you sort of shape that plant up, and that's important. The off season, we're looking and enjoying the roses now because of what was done when the roses were just a bunch of old dead sticks.
That's right. That's right. The preparation that was done ahead of time allows for a beautiful bloom now.
Well, that is our theme. Let's think about folks who are reaping the benefits of having weeded and feeded their lawns last summer. Or last fall, I should say. That was when that took place. That's the time to do stuff like that in order to enjoy them now.
Right. There's a lot of things that go along, seasonal activities that not only need to be done during a particular season, but also are in preparation for what's coming. So any flowering, a lot of flowering plants, shrubbery, depending on when they bloom, will dictate when we should prune. Not that we have to stick to that, but if we want to, those plants like lilacs and forsythias that bloom in the spring, we want to prune those right after they bloom, or as close as possible after they bloom. So what we had this spring, we would have either already pruned, or we'd want to do it pretty soon, because then we'll minimize the effect on the negative effect that we could have on the blooms next year. If we wait till spring, early spring to prune those plants, then we're literally removing both leaf buds and flower buds. So our bloom will not be as vibrant as it would be if we'd have left that alone and pruned right after they bloomed in the spring. And then that gives time, because those buds on those plants are set up, by fall. Those flower buds for next year are set up on the plant by the fall. So when they go dormant, the buds are already there. And then there are other plants that will bloom, set buds, and bloom on new wood.
Well, it brings
hydrangeas can be an example of that. Some hydrangeas will set buds the previous fall. And then we have a lot of different varieties of hydrangeas now that will do both. They call them recombinant type varieties, but they will set those flower buds in the fall. But then if we have a hard winter, or we have weather conditions that kill those buds during the winter, that's okay, because we'll get a second chance, because then those cultivars will actually set new flower buds. Now, it delays the flowering period, of course, because you have to wait for that new growth to come out and then set those flower buds, and so they'll bloom later into the summer than the other, but at least you get blooms.
It brings me to the topic of rhododendron, which the blooming season is just over for them, for their flower blooms. And rhododendron are one of those really, really fast-growing plants that can overtake the space in which they're planted. So when is the proper time to prune them? Right after they bloom, as they've just done? So people should be thinking about that right now, even for a drastic cutback. Because you see some.
Yeah, drastic. We want to. That's also called rejuvenation pruning. We want to do that during the dormant season. So we want to do that late winter, early spring. If we need to really, if they've gotten overgrown and we want to cut them back hard, so that you basically just have sticks left, no foliage. That's when we want to do that. That's a stressful activity, and we want to do that when the plant is dormant, and then allow it in the spring then to put on. There's buds down in the stems, towards the ground, and those buds will open up. Not all plants are like that, but rhododendron are, so that you can rejuvenate, prune those. They'll send up new shoots off of the stems that you've left, and so that's a way that you can help control the height if it's gotten out of bounds.
That can be scary for folks, though.
Yes, yeah,
they've spent years getting it to this point.
That's right. But that's the thing. If they get overgrown, there are options to keep the plant. Now it's going to take a couple years to get the foliage back, because it's an evergreen plant, and then to get it back into flowering again. But but they will grow faster because you have an established plant. You're going to get that foliage and the flowering back sooner.
Okay, so if you're somebody that has, like that guy up along 422 in Strongstown, where it's bigger than his house.
Yes.
If you're cutting it way back from that all the way down, we could see something like that. What about if you just have a moderately large plant that you want to take down to medium size?
And yes, and that could be done right after blooming in the spring.
Okay.
Okay. And then that allows time for new growth to come out, and then also the whole summer and early fall for flower buds to develop on the plant so that it's ready to go next spring.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So you can thin it, open it up a little bit, as well as shorten it that way.
There's probably nothing more colorful and fun to see than a full bloom rhododendron in the spring. And probably nothing sadder than a week later when those blooms are dying and they're falling off. Because it just looks like, oh, man, it was so nice, and now look, that poor thing. But that's the way the plant goes.
Right, that's the cycle. Some people will go in right after bloom because you will get little seed pods developing where the flower was. So some people will go in, and that's on a little stem. It's like an upside-down umbrella almost, and they'll go in and pinch that out right as the new growth is starting to, the leaf buds are opening up there, and you can pinch that out right above that. And especially for a plant that might be a little bit stressed, it's not a thing that you have to do, but especially on younger plants that are trying to get established. And then we throw them into, if you planted it this spring or even last spring, and now we get into the throes of all this heat stress and dryness now.
Yeah.
Pinching those off can help conserve energy and have that, just to maintain the leaves, the new leaves that are coming out, new growth.
I want to ask you about gardens right now because with the weather that we've had, I don't know that this is because of it or not, but I've noticed I've got some wonderful fruit. I've got some great cucumbers right now. The cucumbers themselves have already formed, and they're looking wonderful. Tomatoes the same way. I've got great tomatoes on my plants. But the plants haven't even had time to vine out as typically they would, and the tomatoes aren't near what they're going to be if we ever get any more rain. And those plants strengthen as they do. Sometimes my garden looks like a forest of tomato plants because they expand so much, and the tomatoes are wonderful. But I've got those now before the plants are even, it seems, fully formed. Is that a concern? Is that a result of the dryness of the weather, that I've got such great fruit before I have the foliage that actually shades them?
Yes, they can try to set fruit sooner if there's stresses on the plant, such as water stress, that kick it into flowering, before we get a lot of growth. Sometimes we'll have a more compressed season, and, the plant will start to grow, but then if it gets stressed, it can set flowers and try to fruit, so that it perpetuates itself and creates new seeds and keeps the cycle going.
Is that fruit stay viable then?
Yeah, the fruit can. Yeah, no, those fruit will develop fine. You may not get, because you didn't get as large a plant. If it kicked it into fruiting too soon, it can stunt. Some plants will be stunted by that, so they won't maybe flower as much and produce as much as if they would have been allowed to grow a little bit bigger. And the other thing there is with tomatoes, especially, is we've got indeterminate plants and determinate. So the determinate plants will only grow so much, and then they're going to set flowers and fruit. So we're going to get a lot of fruit at one time with a determinate plant, and that can be scheduled more. If you want to only pick a few times, or if you want a whole bunch at one time so that you can process them. Yeah, that works well.
Which is what we do.
Whereas the indeterminate plants will grow, flower, they'll keep growing, set another flower truss, grow some more plant. So the vines will keep getting longer. You can string them up, but you get less. You get a cluster of fruit, and then you can harvest that. So if you're just eating them fresh, that can work. That type of a plant can work better if you want a little bit over time.
There you go.
Yeah.
Little garden talk.
Yeah.
Here today with this dry weather. And when we talk next week, we'll have had, I think, some more rain according to the forecast.
Hopefully. Things need a drink.
Yeah, we do. And I have a suspicion that my plants will like that a whole lot, and that the plants themselves will grow a bit stronger too. He's Bob Pollock from the Extension. You can give Bob a call at the Extension office if you'd like, if you have a question. It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com. We're 2 minutes away from 8 o'clock. Fox News then, and then Josh from the WCCS newsroom.
Hi, I'm attorney Robert Marcus.
And I'm attorney Brian Nitterheiser.
At Marcus & Mack, we understand the financial stress you may suffer after an accident.
That's why having the right lawyer can make all the difference.
If you or a loved one have been injured due to someone else's negligence,
you deserve experienced and aggressive representation.
With 100 years of combined legal experience, we mean business.
Marcus & Mack, with 5 convenient offices, including Indiana. Learn more